The collector's obsession. Willow Creek, a quaint town nestled between dense forests and rolling hills, was always known for its peace and serenity. But in the summer of 1998, a shadow of unease began to loom over its residents. It started with Peter Lawson, a librarian in his mid-40s. One evening, after returning from work, he found a package on his doorstep, wrapped in brown paper and tied with a twine. It contained a vintage toy soldier, the kind he used to play with as a child. Thinking it was a gift from a friend or a forgotten online purchase, he didn't give it much thought. But the next day, Peter was nowhere to be found. His house was in perfect order, with no signs of a struggle or break-in. Within weeks, similar stories began to emerge. Sarah Thompson, a schoolteacher, received a package containing a delicate porcelain doll. The very next day, she too vanished without a trace. Then there was young Jake Miller, who found a rare comic book on his porch. He was last seen excitedly showing it to his friends at the local diner. The town was abuzz with whispers and speculations. Who was sending these packages, and where were the recipients disappearing to? Parents held their children a little tighter. Neighbors watched each other with suspicion, and the once friendly town was now gripped by fear. Detective Jane Foster, known for her keen instincts and sharp mind, was assigned to the case. As she delved deeper into the mystery, she discovered that the only connection between the victims was the mysterious package they received on the day of their disappearance. Determined to find answers, Jane embarked on an investigation that would lead her into the heart of darkness lurking in Willow Creek. Detective Jane Foster had seen her fair share of peculiar cases, but the disappearances in Willow Creek were unlike any she'd encountered before. The absence of any signs of struggle or forced entry at the homes of the missing persons was baffling. It was as if they had simply walked out of their lives, leaving everything behind. Jane began by meticulously combing through the homes of the victims. In each one, she found the mysterious package, opened and its contents displayed prominently. The vintage toy soldier, the porcelain doll, the rare comic book. Each item seemed to hold a personal significance to its recipient. Interviewing the families and friends of the missing, Jane pieced together a chilling pattern. All the victims had been in good spirits the day before their disappearance, excitedly discussing the unexpected gift they'd received. None of them had any known enemies or reasons to run away. As days turned into weeks, the pressure to solve the case mounted. The town was on edge, with residents fearing they might be the next to receive a package and vanish. Jane decided to set up a hotline, urging anyone with information to come forward. It was during one of these calls that Jane received her first major lead. A local shopkeeper mentioned seeing Dr. Lucas Graham, a respected psychiatrist, purchasing several vintage items similar to those found in the packages. Intrigued, Jane dug deeper and made a startling discovery. Every single missing person had, at some point, visited Dr. Graham for therapy sessions. With this new lead, Jane decided to pay the psychiatrist a visit. She had a gut feeling that Dr. Graham held the key to unraveling the mystery. But little did she know just how twisted the tale would become. Emily Walters, a tenacious journalist for the Willow Creek Gazette, had always been drawn to the unexplained. The town's mysterious disappearances were a puzzle she couldn't resist. While the police followed their leads, Emily began her own parallel investigation, hoping her articles might shed light on the enigma and calm the town's growing fears. Her research led her to the victims' families, where she learned about the peculiar packages. Each interview painted a picture of the victims' last known moments, excitement over a newfound treasure, followed by an inexplicable vanishing. Emily's articles on the subject became the talk of the town, with residents eagerly awaiting each new piece. One morning, as the sun cast a golden hue over Willow Creek, Emily found a package on her own doorstep. Heart racing, she carefully unwrapped it, to reveal a vintage camera, its lens gleaming despite the wear of time. A chill ran down her spine. Was this a warning, a threat, or a clue? Choosing to keep her discovery a secret, Emily began experimenting with the camera. She took photos of the town, its residents, and the homes of the missing. One evening, while reviewing her shots, she noticed something odd. A reflection in a window that shouldn't have been there. It revealed an old, dilapidated house on the outskirts of town, a place long forgotten by most. Driven by a mix of fear and determination, Emily decided to investigate the house herself. If the camera was a clue, then perhaps the house held answers. Armed with her journalist's instinct and the mysterious camera, She ventured into the unknown, unaware that she was about to uncover Willow Creek's darkest secrets. Dr. Lucas Graham was a pillar of the Willow Creek community. As a renowned psychiatrist, he had helped countless residents navigate the complexities of their minds. His office, a grand Victorian mansion, was a sanctuary for many seeking solace. But beneath the veneer of respectability, a darker truth lurked. Detective Jane Foster's visit to Dr. Graham was initially cordial. The doctor, with his silver hair and calm demeanor, welcomed her into his study. Jane wasted no time presenting her findings about the missing residents and their connection to his practice. Dr. Graham acknowledged that the missing individuals had indeed been his patients. He spoke of their shared feelings of being watched or followed in the days leading up to their therapy sessions. He theorized that perhaps these feelings of paranoia were linked to their subsequent disappearances. However, as Jane pressed further, inconsistencies in Dr. Graham's accounts began to emerge. He seemed particularly evasive when questioned about his recent purchases of vintage items. Jane's instincts told her that the doctor was hiding something. Late one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily Walters shared her discovery of the old house with Jane. The detective's research revealed that the property once belonged to the Graham family. The connection was too significant to ignore. Hidden records and old patient files painted a chilling picture. Many of Dr. Graham's patients had been subjected to experimental hypnotherapy sessions where they were made highly suggestible. Jane began to suspect that Dr. Graham was not just treating his patients but manipulating them for some sinister purpose. The mysterious packages, the hypnosis, the old house, all roads led back to Dr. Graham. Jane realized that to solve the mystery of the disappearances, she would have to unravel the enigma that was Dr. Lucas Graham. The old house on the outskirts of Willow Creek stood like a silent sentinel, its time-worn walls bearing witness to countless secrets. As Emily approached, the weight of its history pressed upon her, each creaking floorboard and whispering wind hinting at tales untold. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the scent of old books. Faint rays of light pierced through the boarded-up windows, revealing a maze of corridors and rooms. But it was one room in particular that drew Emily's attention. The door was slightly ajar, and as she pushed it open, she was met with a sight that sent shivers down her spine. The room was meticulously organized, more a museum than a living space. Display cases lined the walls, each housing one of the mysterious items from the packages: the toy soldier, the porcelain doll, the comic book, and many others she hadn't known about. Each item bore a tag with a name, the names of the missing persons. In the center of the room stood a large table, upon which lay maps of Willow Creek, photographs of its residents, and notes written in a hurried scrawl. It was clear that this was the epicenter of the disappearances, the lair of the collector. As Emily delved deeper into the notes, she began to piece together Dr. Graham's twisted logic. He believed that each person, connected to their unique item, held a special essence. By collecting them, he was preserving the soul of Willow Creek. Suddenly, a floorboard creaked behind her. Emily turned to find Dr. Graham, his eyes cold and calculating, standing in the doorway. The room, once a sanctuary of memories, now felt like a trap from which there was no escape. The dim light from the room's lone window cast long shadows, making Dr. Graham's figure seem even more imposing. His eyes, once familiar and comforting to many in Willow Creek, now bore into Emily with an intensity that made her heart race. "Why are you here, Miss Walters?" he asked, his voice dripping with a mix of curiosity and menace. Emily, summoning all her courage, replied, "To uncover the truth, to give a voice to those you've silenced." Dr. Graham chuckled, a sound devoid of warmth. "They're not silenced," he retorted. "They're preserved, protected from the chaos of the world." As he spoke, Emily discreetly reached for the vintage camera, hoping its flash might disorient him momentarily. But Dr. Graham was quicker. "Ah, the final piece to my collection," he mused, eyeing the camera. Just as the situation seemed most dire, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the house. Detective Jane Foster burst into the room, gun drawn. "Step away from her, Graham," she commanded. A tense standoff ensued. Dr. Graham, cornered and desperate, rambled about the purity of his mission, how he was saving the essence of Willow Creek. Jane tried to reason with him, urging him to surrender peacefully, but Dr. Graham had other plans. With a sudden movement, he lunged at Jane, attempting to disarm her. The two grappled, with Emily rushing to Jane's aid. In the ensuing struggle, a shot rang out. Silence filled the room. Dr. Graham lay motionless on the floor, a wound in his side. Jane, panting heavily, looked at Emily with relief. The nightmare was over, but the scars of the confrontation would remain with them forever. The sun had begun its descent, casting a golden hue over Willow Creek, when Detective Jane Foster approached the old Graham residence. The house, with its peeling paint and overgrown ivy, seemed to groan with the weight of its secrets. Jane's instincts had been screaming at her ever since she connected Dr. Graham to the disappearances, and every fiber of her being told her that Emily was in danger. As she neared the entrance, she noticed the front door slightly ajar. Drawing her weapon, she cautiously stepped inside. The house was eerily silent, save for the distant creaks and groans of old wood. She navigated the maze-like corridors, her senses on high alert. Suddenly, muffled voices reached her ears. Following the sound, she arrived at a dimly lit room, its door slightly open. Peeking through the gap, she saw Emily clutching the vintage camera and Dr. Graham, his face a mask of obsession and desperation. Jane took a deep breath, preparing herself for the confrontation. She recalled her training, the countless hours spent on simulations and drills, but nothing could truly prepare her for the real thing. With a swift kick, she burst through the door, her gun aimed squarely at Dr. Graham. "Step back," she commanded, her voice firm and unwavering. The room was thick with tension. Dr. Graham, caught off guard, looked from Jane to Emily, weighing his options. Emily, for her part, seemed both relieved and terrified. As the standoff continued, Jane tried to keep Dr. Graham engaged, looking for an opening. She knew she had to act quickly, for in such situations, every second counted, and as events would soon unfold, her timely arrival would prove crucial in averting a tragedy. The days following the confrontation at the old Graham residence were a whirlwind for Willow Creek. The town, once paralyzed by fear, now buzzed with a mix of relief and disbelief. Dr. Lucas Graham, a man many had trusted with their deepest secrets, was unveiled as the mastermind behind the chilling disappearances. The police, led by Detective Jane Foster, discovered a hidden chamber beneath the house. In secret, the missing residents were found. They were alive but in a trance-like state, victims of Dr. Graham's experimental hypnotherapy. With time, care, and proper medical attention, they began to awaken, their memories fragmented but their spirits resilient. The media descended upon Willow Creek, and Emily Walters was at the forefront, documenting the town's ordeal. Her articles, raw and poignant, painted a vivid picture of the events, earning her accolades and offers from major publications. But more than fame, Emily found a renewed sense of purpose, using her platform to advocate for mental health awareness and the dangers of unchecked obsessions. Jane, hailed as a hero, received commendations for her dedication and sharp investigative skills. Yet the case took a toll on her. She decided to take a sabbatical, seeking solace in the quiet corners of the world, away from the memories of the collector's lair. As for Dr. Graham, he was deemed mentally unfit for trial and was institutionalized. The once respected psychiatrist now became the subject of countless studies, his descent into madness, a cautionary tale for the medical community. Willow Creek, forever changed by the events, slowly began to heal. The town's residents found strength in unity, their bonds deepened by the shared ordeal, and while the scars of the past would always remain, the future held a promise of hope and renewal. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Write in the comments what you think about this story.